We started out as a replacement for temporary workers acting on properties, and we became we took grew from there and became kind of one of the better lease-up companies in the country. There are a number of good ones, but we were one of the best. And so we went in and dealt with distressed properties, and within 90 days or so, we were able to, correct the property's leasing situation and depart. And after we did that for a couple of years, we realized that uh, those properties did not retain the level of success that we created when we were there, and they needed further assistance. So we either had to go back on property, or we had to look at the problem as a whole, for an industry. And we decided to use our skills and our experience and build training courses that could be used across the industry.
Welcome to CREPN Radio for influential commercial real estate professionals who work with investors, buyers, and sellers of commercial real estate coast to coast. Whether you're an investor, broker, lender, property manager, attorney, or accountant, we're here to learn from the experts.
Welcome to Commercial Real Estate Pro Network's CREPN Radio. Thanks for joining us. My name is Jay Darren Gross. This is a podcast focused on commercial real estate investment and risk management strategies. Weekly, we have conversations with commercial real estate investors and professionals who provide their experience and insight to help you grow your real estate portfolio. Today's interview is sponsored by Building Insurance and Risk. When you invest in real estate, it pays to work with a real estate investor protection specialist to protect yourself and your investment from catastrophic loss. The experts at Building Insurance and Risk focus on real estate investor protection. They provide you with multiple insurance coverage offers and a side-by-side coverage comparison. To learn more, go to buildinginsurancerisk.com. Today, my guest is Peter Roisman. Peter Roisman is the co-founding principal, president, and CEO of REV, the Multifamily Leasing company, a Houston-based venture established in 2019. Under his leadership, REV has become a trailblazer in multifamily leasing management and training. And in just a minute, we're going to speak with Peter Roisman about leveraging data for improved multifamily leasing results. But first, a quick reminder, if you like our show, CREPN Radio, there are a couple things you can do to help us out. You can like, share, and subscribe. And as always, we encourage you to leave a comment. We love to hear from our listeners. Also, if you want to see how handsome our guests are, be sure to check out our YouTube channel. You can find us on YouTube at Commercial Real Estate Pro Network. And while you're there, please subscribe. With that, I want to welcome my guest, Peter Roisman. Welcome to CREPN Radio.
Darren, thanks. Happy to be here.
Well, I'm looking forward to our conversation. But before we get started, if you could take just a minute and share with the listeners a little bit about your background.
Sure. So I've had a number of different careers in my life, and started in sports law, and moved into sports ticketing. So I was representing on the athlete representation side initially, and then I was the president of a sports ticketing company. And from there, strangely, I got into real estate development, and in the healthcare area, developed 21 surgery centers across 6 states. And from there, I got into other types of real estate, and including multifamily and other types of commercial development, and essentially started REV, as you described, in 2019 as a company to provide services to the multifamily world. And we started out as one thing, and we've become quite another 6 years later. We started out as a replacement for temporary workers acting on properties, and we became we took we grew from there and became kind of one of the better lease-up companies in the country. There are a number of good ones, but we were one of the best. And so we went in and dealt with distressed properties, and within 90 days or so, we were able to, correct the property's leasing situation and depart. And after we did that for a couple of years, we realized that uh, those properties did not retain the level of success that we created when we were there, and they needed further assistance. So we either had to go back on property, or we had to look at the problem as a whole, for an industry. And we decided to use our skills and our experience and build training courses that could be used across the industry. And so, we have assessment tools to go and check the performance levels of any multifamily property in the country very quickly, and then identify gaps and provide training courses to train up those deficiencies and raise the overall level of performance on multifamily properties now.
That's fascinating how where you start's not necessarily where you end, but finding your niche and recognizing the value and the need in the marketplace for what you do. That's really cool. Um, so I'm curious. So the I guess what I'd start with is there any kind of like a ideal size of property that you tend to find that your services are more in demand for?
That's a good question, and a fairly normal question that we would get, right? People have anywhere from one property to hundreds, if not thousands of properties if at the top end of the multifamily industry where Wall Street lives. Um, with our new products, we do have the ability to handle any size client. And we probably a little bit different things for the largest portfolios. We give a kind of level playing field across the portfolio viewpoint, way to measure people working in one state from another, and in different uh, sub-regions of a country, and uh, assess them the same way. And that's really valuable. And then train them the same way as well. So the standardization of what we've done and the globalization of it allows us to really work with any client.
Got it. And so I'm assuming, what you were saying is that you used to do this boots on the ground kind of training. Is it more now virtual, or how are you set up? Or do you still send teams out?
No, we don't actually. Well, I hate to bring up the topic of AI, but I tend to talk about it in almost every conversation I have every day. And if you think back to when people started using the internet, that's where we are with AI today. And you can't exist without the internet, in any business today. I mean, you can certainly exist and go off the grid, but if you want to operate a business successfully, you got to be using the internet. The same is true with AI, and we've been using it now for every single day in our company for a year and a half. And so a lot of our analysis has now been programmed in to be done by AI, and a lot of our data collection is done by AI. So um, we did have boots on the ground. We got to be very good at it, but it wasn't scalable in terms of a business. We could have been, an okay sized business, but it wasn't going to solve any industry wide problems. We could never do that with just workforce and human capital. So we said, let's try to set out and help more people and be more valuable to more companies. And so that's what we did. That's how we ended up where we are. I mean, it wasn't as if we had a shortage of work in doing what we were doing. We had more of a shortage of management and human capital and workforce that we had a hard time managing. I think we were up to 100 people at one point, and that was getting cumbersome. And so at the end of all of this, uh, our own company will have, certainly just double digit people, and maybe single digit number of people. It'll be a tech driven company.
It's fascinating how that, you can leverage that and actually multiply the results. That's really cool. So you mentioned assessment. identifying the gaps and training. At the front end of the assessment, when somebody comes to you that has a property that's not performing or they're not leased up. I mean, I want to make sure we're on the focusing on the leasing as you identified before we started recording. It's leasing is really kind of the focus, not necessarily all the management, but just getting the property leased up. Is that correct?
It is correct. And having a well-performing leasing team, does a lot of things for a property. I think, you and I before the call, talked about a couple of them, but risk reduction is one, just overall stabilization of the property, just not having people coming and going all the time, keeping people in their jobs and replacing, you know, cost of replacing a person is somewhere around, according to Glassdoor, I think it was trying to get the right number. It's over four, it was like over 4,000, like something around $4,500 and 24 days and six people's time to just replace one person. So that's a destabilizing thing. And so keeping people in place, keeping them happy and motivated, feeling important, is very rewarding to the property. It creates value in the property. It's certainly stabilizing, and you know, from a financial standpoint, it's to the lending community, to the insurance community. Uh, those kinds of properties get better treatment. They'll maybe see better interest rates. They certainly, if you're looking at attracting investors to a property, they'll attract more investment capital because they're stabilized and performing. So I mean, there's just so many positives coming out of stabilizing the leasing team, and and it also reduces costs. I mean, if you think about it, if you have a stable and a performing leasing team, you don't have to advertise as much. You don't have to offer concessions as much. You don't have to pay locators to bring, tenants and residents to you. Um, there won't be as much turnover, so we don't have to face, filling open positions, which is a regular thing in the multifamily world. So it's a cost reducer, but it's really a revenue producer, and that's why we're actually called Rev. I mean, it's REV, but it's Rev, so it's revenues first. It's kind of revolutionary in the way we're taking a new look at something, and it's revving up your engines. So there's a kind of threefold meaning in our name.
Well, it's good to have, the something that attaches to people as far as the brand goes, that people identify and recognize, and it resonates. That's great. And so going back to like the front end, the assessment, um, can you describe kind of how you or how Rev looks at a property, and what are some of the I guess the key indicators that you look for when you're assessing a property,
Sure. So
and specific to leasing? I would assume that
it is just it's to leasing, but it does evaluate the appearance and
how inviting a property is, I suppose, or
correct. So we'll
okay,
look at the property's online presence. We'll look at the property itself. So property is one of the three P's we look at. The person doing the leasing is a second P that we look at, and we assess that. And then the third is the process followed to to obtain a lease. So it's people, process, and property are the three Ps, not weighing the same in terms of you know how how we how we score them. That's kind of proprietary. So we don't score them equally. We do feel that the people and the process are weighed heavier than the property itself, although the property does have a meaningful score in there as well. So we in our full blown scoring system, we have full blown, which is a 2 week period. We go on site, we do a tour, we make phone calls, and we do internet connect. We have outreach through email, and so typically we'll measure on the full blown assessment about 1,000 data points. So it's pretty comprehensive. We've scored well over 300 properties on the full scale at this point, And our scale is a 700 score, top score, with the average score in the industry being around 320 to 325, and the top score we've seen being around 485. I think it was 486 actually. So anywhere above 4 is certainly considered good, solid leasing. Above 5 we would consider very good, and above 6 we would consider top of the line excellence. And so we go in, we score, we gather all the data, we collect it, we analyze it, and then we produce a report. And that report goes onto a dashboard that our clients can use. The secondary version of this, which is one that a lot of our clients have chosen because they don't feel they have a giant need to analyze 1,000 data points, which is we'll telephonically over a 2-week period, we'll reach out to their leasing team and gather data as to their performance, but via internet and via email and phone calls. And we know what good performance looks like because we have standards for that. And so we then come back and give scores based on, listen, for instance, we make 12 phone calls, 4 of them weren't answered, so that they get 0 for that. How they answer, what if they try to move it along and get you towards coming in for a tour, that's certain number of points. And so it's basically, we have a standard that works, and we measure the performance of the people on the ground to see if they're doing what they need to do to move the leasing process along to conclusion. And if there are gaps, you'll be amazed at how many phone calls don't get answered. Well, there's a pretty good chance they're not coming back again. So, just doing the basics in leasing really gets you pretty far along the process. And we're finding that there are some gaps in just the basics. So, we've created from this, we then, as I said, make that data available in a dashboard, and we create training courses to address the gaps and improve the team. And so that's more or less the front end of this.
Yeah, no, I'm always disappointed when I recognize all the ways we have to communicate these days, and how the live person on the other end of the phone is rarely treated with the sense of urgency that it deserves. I think back to before all these ways to communicate, and when the phone rang, man, it was like answer it, try and get on the first ring or whatever kind of thing. There
Right.
was a sense of urgency. But it's
No, it's
interesting.
pretty important. I mean, I'll give you a real world example. So I was talking to the president of one of the best management companies, owner managed companies in the country. And he said he had done over his career probably 500 tours. And if you think about after you do a tour, what's the most important thing you do after a tour? Let's say they didn't, you know, you know, sign a lease from there. So what's the most important thing would be following up, right? Well, he told me he had 500 tours. If you want to take a guess as to how many of those 500 agents followed up with him, I think you'd be surprised at his answer.
I would guess it's less than 5, and it's probably closer to 0.
Fantastic. Yes. You must be good in business because the answer was 5. Yeah. 1%.
Yeah.
1% followed up with him. And frankly, it's almost mind boggling to me because that's someone who took the time in to do a tour. If it was a reasonable tour at all, your chance of closing that are probably 30%.
Right.
So you have to follow up. I mean, it's an absolute must. I mean, the leasing process can be boiled down to really 3 really big areas, and then there are many sub areas. The 3 areas, the first area is discovery, right? When someone comes in or calls you, you have to figure out who that person is. Why is it they're looking for a place? Who are they? What's important to them? And from understanding this person, you can then direct them or called benefit selling, direct them into the benefits of your property that are of interest to this person. And so, let's say they're going to work from their apartment. If they're going to work from their apartment, they're going to need high-speed internet. They're going to need a nice, quiet place to work. They may want to go have an outdoor area to work. I mean, there are natural things that once you learn about the person you're talking to, you can direct the benefits of your property. You can highlight those to them. So start with discovery. If you do a poor job at discovery, you're going to do a very poor job at benefit selling, because you can't sell someone a benefit if you don't know what they want. And so discovery is the key. Really early on, discovery really important. Benefit selling also really important, because that's what's going to move them towards becoming a resident. And then all the steps towards closure, right? And then closing the lease is really, really important. So, you know, there's some training that's out there in the marketplace now. It's not revenue oriented necessarily. It's more certification / check the box kind of training. Okay, yeah, we put our people through the training. They should be good to go. But it's not really focused on getting, maximizing the revenue. And maximizing the revenue changes a property for the reasons we talked about before. It's really what distinguishes, the high performing properties from the average properties. And quite frankly, if you're an investor, if you're an owner, if you're an asset manager, that's really important. That should be really important to you, because that's your bottom line. And so, we're focused on the revenue side. The industry itself, interestingly, I don't know if you've followed it very closely, but at a lot of conferences these days and over the past 2.5 years, there's cost consolidation and cost savings discussions all over the place, which is, I don't diminish the value of that, and I think it's important. But to me, it's almost like someone's, stepping over $100 bill to pick up a quarter. And so don't forget about the $100 bill. And just, the revenue side grows much faster than you can cut costs. And there's a real limit on what you can cut, because costs always increase. And, it's really hard to make more profit just by cutting costs.
Yeah, no, I think depending on your focus, you can get myopic and forget about the other side of the equation, because you're absolutely right. I mean, you can solve a lot of the cost issues if you grow the revenue, because there's going to be a cost to operate a property, period.
Correct.
Utilities, payroll, mortgage, insurance,
Yeah.
lawn, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But if you can keep your property full, and and even when you have a full property, it makes it really easy to keep the property attractive and desirable. You've got revenue.
Correct.
If you're
You're in
constant,
first place. It keeps you in first place. And you're,
yeah, yeah, no, and for all the reasons, that exist with real estate for valuation. I mean, the NOI, you've increased your NOI, you've increased your value, and it's like when you have money, the banks are always willing to lend you money. When you don't have money, the banks are looking at you like, I don't know. And
exactly.
and then so yeah, if you got a full property with happy residents, um, and increasing rents, I mean that's kind of the sweet spot.
It really is. Yeah. And the interesting thing is, for another thing I've heard from many of our clients is, look, if we bring in an extra dollar, it's an extra $20 in value to the property, at a 5 cap rate, which is not uncommon in the industry. So, it's from a valuation standpoint, you're not only stabilizing, but you're adding value to the property.
So I want to ask you, you mentioned AI and how you guys use it, or that you use it. Are you finding that AI is something that at the property level that property owners or managers and leasing teams are able to implement? Um, and I'm just kind of curious on that. Do you have any insight on that?
I haven't had, I don't have firsthand knowledge of it because I haven't seen it on property, but I've heard discussions of companies trying to incorporate it into different aspects of their business, right? Um, I think, you know, there's no question the train is moving, right? The AI train is moving, and I would highly recommend that everyone get on it at some level. I mean, even if you're just learning about AI, there are these introductory courses where they can teach you how to understand it. And by the way, it is computer knowledge, right? It's computer learning. So as we humans get better at programming, meaning data in has a direct relation to data out to us. And so as we get better at asking questions or asking for tasks to be done, the task coming back to us will be much cleaner and better and more functional. And so there is a learning curve to the humans trying to work with AI, and it's worth getting started earlier, because if you take a long time, trying to catch up to AI after this train has left the station is going to be really hard. And I don't think any business in 5 years from now, I don't think there will be a successful business in the country that doesn't incorporate AI in some way. I think it's that powerful. I mean, if you think about it in other industries, think about it in research, think about it in medical research, what can be done with AI. Think about it. I mean, it does research that was taking people months, if not years, to do, and gets it done in days or hours.
Yeah, no, it's a huge leverage. I mean, a tool to leverage for data collection and also summarizing the body of information there. And I think yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's just a matter of educating oneself about how to use it.
Correct.
Because I think
I'm still learning. I'm very much learning. I have people in our company that are much better than I at it, and um, pretty proficient at this point, which is great because they're good at working with it, which means we have, it's almost like having the smartest assistant in the world working with you all the time. They're not perfect. They get things wrong. And so you have to go back. If intuitively you look at an answer and it doesn't make any sense to you, it's probably just wrong, and you probably have to rephrase the task. And but at the end of the day, it strengthens every organization almost immediately.
right. So I'm curious. The the follow up was kind of the key point you mentioned as far as, and I can see that being like one of the highest marks or the highest points to pay attention to for increasing the leasing success in the follow up. Beyond, what you identified early is that if you do some discovery and find out what the prospective tenant is looking for and being able to highlight the benefits of your property that match what they're looking for. But I'm just curious, that follow up. You'd mentioned like 1% was what the client had experienced, but 30% is being and I would think 30% would be kind of a standard or achievable goal. Is
It's
that
conservative, yes.
is that pretty much what you find? And I mean, and I'm curious if it takes how many follow-ups. Is it one follow-up or how far down the chain do
Great
you go on
question.
follow-up?
That's a great question. Obviously, every individual is different on each end, right? Every
Right.
leasing agent is different. You can follow a playbook, but everyone that walks through the door has different needs and wants and goals. And so I think if you do things perfectly, after you get someone on a tour, there's a reasonably good chance, meaning 30% plus of signing a lease. Okay, because you've moved them appropriately down the leasing pathway. You've answered all their questions along the way. You've taken the opportunity to show them the unit or a type of unit they would be living in. You've shown them the property. You've answered, you basically are you're going to ask a question like, is there any would like to sit down and sign the lease. And then you'll know what exactly is, where they are with that. But they should already be expecting that that's the next step. And you can look, if you have only one type of unit that they're very interested, they want a corner unit with a bedroom and a study. That's scarcity. I mean, there's always 100 factors here that you're dealing with, because if that's the last unit, you say, listen, let's put this unit on hold. Let's get this thing signed up. You have a right of rescission typically in most states of a day or two or three, and let's get you signed up, because you want this unit if you're going to live here. And so when scarcity factors in, really, I would say, I would be looking to close the lease on site. As I said, there's probably, the chances go much down after they've left the property, right? So the whole idea is get them to the tour, get them prepared at the tour to be signing a lease. And there's almost an assumption after you've walked through all of this and you're hearing signals and hearing responses to your questions, that you're moving towards signing a lease. But I mean, 1% follow-up doesn't work. If they do leave the property without signing a lease, you have to 100% follow up. And I still think you get, more than 30% of those people to come back and sign a lease. So I don't know if I answered the question, but I tried.
No, I think, the follow-up, it's basic sales. I mean, it's kind of what it comes down to. And it's funny how much effort is put into the initial meeting, or, I mean, you think about the advertising or whatever, all the effort that's being put in to generate that opportunity, and to just let it walk away. It just seems, crazy. So I'm curious, how much of or I'm assuming, and I'll ask the question, how much of the efforts to improve the leasing is in training the staff, the leasing staff? Because I would assume, like, we talked about the property and
Answers all of it,
yeah,
really,
okay,
literally all of it,
yeah,
because that's the quarterback. You're
yeah,
talking to the quarterback. So if the quarterback doesn't run the playbook well, then the team doesn't move down the field and score points. And so literally, it's all about that. It's like as basic as how to write a follow-up email, right? You got an inquiry. How do you respond back to that? It's literally everything they should be doing at the best level. And we give real examples. We give quizzes. We have games to play. It's gamified. I mean, it's actually kind of fun to go through these courses. It's especially if you're an inexperienced leasing person, you're going to absorb, all of this, right? It's some of it the experienced leasing people will have already seen. So that's why doing the assessment really helps, because we can focus the training on the areas that they should be training, not everything. They don't have to take the leasing 101 at the very beginning. They can just train up a few areas and maybe improve a few skills and then perform better. So
yeah.
the answer is the leasing agent is the quarterback, and the quarterback has to play well.
No, makes sense. Makes sense. I, have some properties that I own, and I have different management companies on different properties, and a manager that understands the value of having somebody in the unit sooner rather than eventually is worth a lot. And I'm just amazed at how often it's like, well, yeah, there's nobody there, so we gotta get the company out there to look at and see what's got to be done, and then I'm like, you knew they were gonna leave 3 weeks ago, and you're just now getting around. Well, we couldn't get into it. I was like, no, 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 no. If they're gonna be gone on the first, I would try and see what you can get. Getting a contractor in there before, just to assess how bad it is or what's going to need to be done, so he's ready to go on the second, kind of thing.
No,
But
you literally described it. downtime should be a matter, I mean, no more than a week. The
Yeah.
downtime should be a couple of days, turn the whole unit over, and you should have leases lined up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Start advertising the unit and make sure that they know that it's rare that we have one available, but it's going to be coming, just create some sense of urgency there. So yeah,
absolutely.
I
No, you're
get it.
right.
I get
Absolutely.
it.
And look, your perspective on the property is different than the management company's perspective on the property. This is your asset. For them, it's their job, right? And so they sometimes have trouble prioritizing the tasks that are ahead of them, right? They have 100 things to do to manage a property. Well, keeping the unit leased, in my mind, and always has been for the last 6 years, that's number one on the list. So, and resident satisfaction should be probably 1A, right? Keep the people that are already living there in there and keep them happy. But keeping the place leased and not having downtime, because a unit unleased is revenue lost forever. Okay, that is never recovered. It's like an airplane seat that just flew away empty. And so that's money going out the door. So task 1 and 1A should be, you know, leasing up and keeping people there and in the satisfaction. But as you know, and you probably have from talking to different management companies, that's not always the case. In fact, it's almost never the case.
So to that, I'm curious, do you have any kind of a way that you incentivize the leasing staff to recognize the sense of urgency?
It has to start with the owner of the property or the asset manager, the people in charge of that property that hire and fire management companies. And management companies typically have 30-day contracts, or at least a year contract with a 30-day, out. The incentive is, if you want to keep working with me, I would like your people to take these training courses because it will help all of us. And you know what, quite frankly, Darren, as an owner, right now our price is almost an introductory price. It's $50 a month per property. So, I mean, honestly, if I were the owner and I were you, I would say, listen, your people, I would call the management company and say, listen, your people have to take these courses. They're gonna be assessed, and they should take the courses that fill the gaps. It's $50 a month. It's like having lunch. This is not a big cost. This is literally, do you want to help yourself or don't you? This isn't a cost consideration. Do I want to step up and get my people performing better?
No, that's interesting, and just again to try and keep everybody at a high level and focused, and understand their job and affecting the value of the property and especially in these times. I mean, right now I think the market's starting to well, it depends on where you're at. I mean, there's always local market, but clearly interest rates have been higher and supply has kind of exceeded demand in certain markets, and so you have that little kind of a repositioning. And if there's vacancies in the marketplace, you don't want to be one of them. You want to try and keep your place
Absolutely.
occupied. So
No,
yeah,
you're
no.
so right. I think, if after we're done with this call, if you want to have a conversation later, I'll give you my number. We can talk.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. Hey, Peter, if we could, I'd like to shift gears here for a second. By day, I'm an insurance broker. And as such, I work with my clients to assess risk and determine what to do with the risk. And there's three strategies we typically consider. We first look to see if we can avoid the risk. If we cannot avoid the risk, we look to see if we can minimize the risk. And if we're not able to avoid nor minimize the risk, we look to see if we can transfer the risk. And that's what an insurance policy is. It's a risk transfer vehicle. And as such, I like to ask my guests if they can look at their own situation and identify what they consider to be the biggest risk. And again, for clarification, while I'm an insurance broker, I'm not necessarily looking for an insurance related answer. And so if you're willing, I'd like to ask you, Peter Roisman, what is the biggest risk?
Well, the biggest risk in my mind, besides physical property itself is the occupancy and the rental rates. So if you have an underperforming leasing team and your occupancy drops into the 80s, and at one point 15% of the properties in Houston were under 85%, you're at risk. That is a high risk to. So and to flip that, to address that risk, you have to be high performing at leasing, which means you're not at risk at all. You're lowering or reducing or removing risk. If you're a stabilized property performing at a high level, leading your submarket, yeah, that one you can check off the risk. You can still have storms. You can still have the other things that happen on a property, but if your revenue streams are solid, you should never have a financial risk that way.
No, well said. Leased properties work. That's good. Hey, Peter, where can the listeners go if they'd like to learn more or connect with you?
Sure. You can come to our website at rev-leasing.com. And we have, a link there. You want to click on book a demo or something, you can see our courses. It's really very easy. And as I said, you're in on the ground floor here. We're a company that's experienced, and we've now got these products that are ready to roll and should be able to help the industry at this point, at least in the leasing office.
Got it. Well, Peter Roisman, I can't say thanks enough for taking the time to talk today. I've learned a lot and enjoyed talking with you, and look forward to doing it again soon.
Thank you, Darren. Yeah, it was a great conversation, and I learned a little bit about the risk side from you too. So I didn't know how you assess it, or at least how to think about it, but I think those three areas make sense.
All right. Well, for our listeners, if you like this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Remember, the more you know, the more you grow. That's all we've got this week. Until next time, thanks for listening to Commercial Real Estate Pro Network's CREPN Radio.
You're listening to CREPN Radio for influential commercial real estate professionals. For more information on this or any of our guests, like us on Facebook, CREPN Radio.